this. This is a Caribbean Canadian identity. Can I get a volunteer to read what you see on the screen, please?
I'll go, Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa, thank you.
Caribbean Canadian identity. People who are native to or descending from Caribbean nations, regions, territories, including their variations by ancestry, ethnicity, and currently reside in Canada and self-identify as Caribbean Canadian. We represent, serve, and belong in the Caribbean Canadian community, be deliberate in supporting this sole shared identity in our space. We do not promote racism or colonialization, colonialism. So unscientific labels such as black, brown, and white are not tolerated. Further, hate, political, and religious debates are not tolerated.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any question on that from anyone? Okay, so moving on, I'm gonna ask a series of did you know? I love did you know questions. And just kind of, you can open up mic if you feel comfortable or type in the chat or, you know, let's participate in a fun discussion here. It's nothing really too heavy, just a few did you know questions. Did you know that race is a social construct and the Ontario Human Rights Commission describes people as racialized group instead of the more outdated and inaccurate term racial minority, visible minority, person of color, or non-white? Who knew that? And why is this thing coming back up? Anyone knew that?
When you say the commission, which commission are we referring to?
Ontario Human Rights Commission.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yes, Ontario Human Rights Commission, racialized group. Any other question? All right. Anything in the chat? Because I can't see the chat right now. So here's another did you know? I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a few feedback on this one. By show of hands or type in the chat or open up your mic. Did you know, who knew there are 43 countries in the Caribbean? Did you know that, Vanessa?
Yeah, because I'm in travel.
Oh, wow, good for you. Wow. I'm not sure. I think that's the
trips to almost all of these destinations.
Wow, I'd love to hear your story on a few of them because they're very, very interesting. We've been for the last, I don't know, 4 years or so, Camille. We've been going through and studying and having quiz and, you know, Caribbean Jeopardy and the flag and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very fascinating, you know, what we learn each time. So it would be great if I can get some of your stories. Oh yeah, for sure. Because even my kids, they're all into, you know, first my daughter wanted to go to Paris. Now she wants to go to Montserrat. I'm like, okay, all right.
Oh, how's it? Well, might be a little difficult considering that volcano that erupted a few years back.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you know, at least
there's still a part of the country that's still open, but the majority of it is not accessible, really. Okay.
Got it. Yeah, I can't imagine. Any other question from anyone else? So everyone knew that there are 43 countries? Oh, I love it. Okay, so we're all on the same page. We are all on the same page. How about this? Here are some of our main historic Caribbean ancestries: African, Asian, European, Indigenous, South, why does this thing keep popping up on my screen? South American and South Asian. Who knew this? And this, by the way, make us unique.
Sorry, what's the question?
I'll just, if you can see my screen, some historic Caribbean ancestries. That's what makes us unique. Because the African, the Asian, the European, Indigenous, South American, and South Asian.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yes, I know that. I knew that.
Cool, love it. How about 6 official languages?
Yeah.
In the Caribbean: Creole, Dutch, English, French,
Yep.
Papiamento was really new to me.
Oh.
Even like a month ago, I just want to kind of read what we researched a month ago in terms of Papiamento. It's a Portuguese-based Creole language spoken in Dutch Caribbean, and the official language of Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about this one? Can I get a volunteer to read this one? Did you know? Any takers?
Okay, I'll go.
Thank you, Rexella.
Did you know cultural identity is an important contributor to people's well-being? Identifying with a particular culture gives people feelings of belonging and security. It also provides people with access to social networks, which provide support and shared values and aspirations. These can help break down barriers and build a sense of trust between people, a phenomenon sometimes referred to as social capital.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone wanted to add or ask any questions, or did you know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes
Any other?
sense.
I'm sorry?
I said it makes sense.
Yes. Yes. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, because this is going to make sense to our main conversation we're going to be having later on. So I want to make sure we are on the same page moving forward. So here we go in terms of the participant intros. So I'm going to go around pretty much everyone that's on my screen. Let me just open my screen so I can see everyone at the same time. We're going to introduce ourselves, which Caribbean country or countries you're representing, and why did you join this movement for our current members and for the guests, our potential members. You can answer this question, and obviously if you're interested in, like I said earlier, you want to learn more, you can join us next week, Sunday. So I'm going to start off with myself. You guys already know my name is Oliver Levy. I'm representing Jamaica, otherwise known as Jamdong. Why did I join this movement? For me, it was a no-brainer. When it comes to, and Rexella, when you read earlier in terms of, you know, being part of, kind of know who you are, where you come from, your identity and stuff like that. I know how important that is, and I know how that can get lost in our in our society right now when it comes to our future generation. So for me, I want to make sure my kids kind of really have a good sense of identity. So I also want to be part of a movement, or, you know, part of a conversation that can help this move forward and leave a legacy for us as Caribbean, right? I don't want to say too much because we have more to talk about when it comes to that aspect. So that's the reason why I chose to join this movement. So on my screen, I'm going to start with Vanessa, who's right beside me. Vanessa, go ahead.
Oh gosh, Oliver, I didn't know I was so close to you.
Yes. On my screen, yes, you are.
My goodness. Okay, so my name is Vanessa Reed. I more identify with Jamaica. My parents are both Jamaican. We were born in the UK, so we're British Jamaicans. But obviously, I totally identify with Jamaica. Why did you join the movement? Oh, that's for current members. Why are you interested in joining the movement? Well, I actually am currently vice president of the Congress of Black Women of Canada, or the Ontario region, and I'm in with the Oshawa Whitby chapter. And I think the CWS came across, I think someone sent me a link, or I think it was when the petition for the bill was going around, and I started I went into the website, I started looking around and reading, and I really like what CWS, you know, kind of obviously stands for. And then I started looking, and I realized that Oh, like a lot of the cities within, so Brampton had the proclamation, and I realized from Brampton and Toronto and all of these cities had all given proclamations and signed the petition. Like all of this stuff had happened. I'm going like, oh my God, how come I'm just hearing about this? That was the first aha moment. And then I checked within, I had our secretary check to see, do we have a proclamation for CWS in Oshawa Whitby? And she said, she checked it, I think within 24 or 48 hours, she came back to me and said, no. I said, go get it, right? So I was one of the persons that got that out in Oshawa Whitby for them to sign that proclamation. So I've just kind of been wanting to get a, get it a little bit more involved, but again, because of what we do as well, we just had a lot of things happening and I just didn't get a chance to really delve into it, as I was telling Ingrid a couple nights ago. So now that everything, our Mother's Day tea party's done, the Black History stuff is all done, everything's all done, now it's time, we're coming up for a break and I'm hoping to get a little bit more involved.
Thank you, appreciate it. And I hope we can see you next week, Sunday, if you want to be part of, just to get a little bit, dive in a little bit more into other fun games and discussion we're having. So thank you for coming.
Definitely, yeah, I definitely will do that for sure.
Okay, cool, thank you. So the next one besides you, we have Trudy. Trudy, go ahead if you can see the screen. Just answer those questions if you don't mind.
Okay, sorry, I muted myself. I could see the screen. You all could see me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Trudy Leons Joseph. Caribbean countries I represent. St. Lucia, but I'm truly a Canadian St. Lucian. I was born in Guelph, Canada. And with regard to the number of years, now I almost had equal number of years living in St. Lucia and living in Canada, but now Canada has edged off. So why did I join the movement? I must say, I think it was 2 years ago or so, Beverly Compton, Brayshaw, had told me about it. She's like a relative. Yeah, it was on my to-do list. Why did I join now? I'm a currently phased, but I have the time now. And I usually try and volunteer and keep active. Of course, years before I was more with St. Lucia, the St. Lucia Toronto Association, anything with St. Lucia. This movement, well, the name struck a chord with me because even sometimes on some forms where they ask you to print your ethnicity or nationality, sometimes it depends what it is. I literally put other because I truly feel I am a Caribbean Canadian. So, Caribbean, and usually sometimes they don't have that. So why are you interested in joining the movement? Well, this is my first meeting. I'm getting information and seeing. I know to register, had to select out of 5 things. I'm pretty sure I would have selected mentoring or professional development of youth. That's something I sort of, not I'm a counselor or anything, but in my profession, I always enjoyed mentoring or helping youth staff or employees in their career development. So I think I'd find a niche there. We'll take it one thing at a time. Yes, thank you. I'm on for next Sunday. So we'll see how it goes. Yes, I'm finding information. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for being here as well. Rexella, you up next?
As usual. My name is Rick Griffiths.
We got you.
And I represent Guyana. When the opportunity was offered to me to join, I jumped in because I wanted to be in a movement or an organization where I can participate, where I can feel that I belong, where I can be engaged, and where I can share similar interests and learn about other cultures. So that's my reason for joining.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming tonight. And we have Danielle.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Danielle. I am representing the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I am presently a member of Caribbean Women's Society and as well as a board member with Caribbean Canadian Parents United. Why I joined the movement: to be a part of a community that represents my culture as a Caribbean Canadian, as well as to, network and learn more about my Caribbean heritage and to pass that information on to my daughter and other future generations. Why I am interested, sorry, I am a part of the movement, but these are a lot of the things that made me interested in joining in the first place. Was that I wanted to be part of an active organization that, represents the fullness of what it means to be a Caribbean person in Canada. So that's my take.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. And we have Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa. I'm representing Barbados. I am a board member for Caribbean Canadian Parents United and a member of Caribbean Women's Society. And I joined the movement to be around like-minded individuals, to learn more about the other Caribbean islands other than Barbados, and to also pass along the culture, heritage, and knowledge to my kids.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. You have Amanda.
Hello, everybody. My name is Amanda, and I am representing Guyana. I joined the movement about a year ago, and I was interested in more of the leadership role in the Caribbean community outside of just the Guyanese community. I was really interested in finding someone who was in the Caribbean who served as more of a mentor and a leader, and also fostering more community and unity and also friendships and support for the people who are in the Caribbean Canadian community. We're all here tonight, so we do know that we are able to support one another. We just need things like this, and that's why I'm a part of it. So yeah, my name is Amanda.
Cool. Thank you for joining us, Amanda. And we have Dallas. I hope I'm not pronouncing your name wrong. Dallas. I'm not sure if you're speaking. If you can open up your mic. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, okay. My name is Dallas, and I represent the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I got an invitation from my, I can say my niece, Danielle, and I'm just checking things out to see like what the kind of things the organization is doing, to see if something I'll be interested in, like the organization, if that'll be something I'll be interested in joining at this time.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate that. Thank you. And we got Ingrid.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ingrid. I'm from Guyana. I'm representing Guyana. And for me, very much like most of the other people tonight, I joined this movement to be with like-minded people and to just get a better understanding about the Caribbean culture and, of course, the Caribbean Canadian movement. That's it for me. And I must do a shout out to Vanessa. Thank you, Vanessa, for seeing you here tonight.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate that, Ingrid. And we got David.
Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here tonight. I recently became a C5 member. When I check my my own upbringing and my education and my life, especially in England and in Toronto, I think I've always been involved in the community. So when I heard about the organization, I wanted to contribute. And one of the things I've already learned here is to, it can be a redemptive movement, meaning what I got out of the meaning of that is I could gain something for myself in representing a large community like the Caribbean. So for me, that represents community again. So it makes me feel good inside that I'm representing something great outside. And that's it.
Wow. Yeah, love it. Love it. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. And we got Mark.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Kerr. I am a board member for the Caribbean Canadian Chamber of Commerce. I represent the country of Jamaica and joined the movement for a lot of the reasons I think a lot of other people have said as well. But mostly it's a social thing and just getting to know others, you know, of similar cultural descent, learning about other countries, getting our kids involved and getting them to learn as well. And so it's just been a lot of fun. The group is fun, just, you know, socializing mostly every Sunday with our members. So it's just a lot of fun. So, and the last piece to that as well is working toward growing the Chamber of Commerce. So those are the main reasons why I'm a part of this group. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And last but not least, we got Ingrid, Ingrid O. I think she stepped away. Oh, she's back.
Hi, I'm here. My name is Ingrid Osborne. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
I'm here because I'm representing Guyana and Barbados. I wanted to get to know other Caribbean islands and like-minded people that are in the community living the same way I grew up because I was born here, but everybody's view is different. Some of you have come as a young person to Canada, and some of you have been born here. So I just wanted to get other people's views, and that's why I joined the group.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank everyone for being here. You're in the right place. I was just listening to everyone, and you are in the right place. So let's move forward. So if you take a look on what's written here by Camille Kerr, the Caribbean Canadian community is suffering an identity crisis. And I know every time we put this up, it's either sparks or a conversation. But at this point, I really want you to kind of figure out what that means. And if you want to really ask question around that, and when I say identity crisis, I'm talking about socially, economically, politically, and culturally. Right? Anyone care to share if they agree or disagree that our Caribbean Canadians are suffering an identity crisis? So everyone agrees? The reason, okay, see Vanessa shaking her head. Camila's giving me a thumbs up. And I just want to kind of give a little bit of context to this, that when it comes to a movement, it's so necessary to identify what the problem is, or you should have a crisis so you can have a movement. That makes sense, right? So, and you know, we as Caribbean, as collective, we are responding to this crisis. And obviously the way we are responding to this is we're tackling this crisis by forging a collective perspective, direction, and working unity, also by Camille Kerr. This is our plan. This is our strategy. Any questions regarding this? Okay, we're good. So this is how we're responding. And there's something that I really want to kind of dig into and give a little bit more clarity to what we just said in the last two quotes, or did you know, and all these things. And so we talk about strategy. Now let's kind of break that down into task, into manageable steps, if you will. So if you take a look, there's 12 beliefs from our collective perspective. And there are our values that will help us point us in the right direction where we want to go, right? So if you look on the right side, top side, I'm not sure if we're familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let me just blow that up in a second. So this is your Maslow hierarchy of needs. And at this point, I'm gonna ask Camille if she can probably, if you feel comfortable, Camille, if you can dig a little bit deeper into this.
Yes, sure. So basically, these organizations or this movement is starting at the psychological needs of our community, right? So the first of the three arrows, belongingness and love needs. I think I heard somebody say they joined to feel a sense of belonging. So that's where we're starting with these organizations. We recognize that that is fundamental to know who you are. You have to know where you belong. Right? If you don't know where you belong, then you don't have an identity. You don't know who you are. So that's why we formed these three organizations that some of us here are already members of. The three different logos and behind me, three different organizations. They're a coalition of nonprofits, all catering or targeting the Caribbean Canadian demographic. They have slightly different mandates, but who they call on or who they serve and who they represent are Caribbean Canadians. So that's where we're starting. So in other words, we're going under the presumption that we're all of us here, all 13 of us on this call, are already meeting our physiological and safety needs. We already have food, water, shelter, and security. All right, so these orgs are not catering to those specific needs. We've gone up to the next level because that's human nature, right? Once you have food, water, and shelter, your next desire, your next basic need will be safety and security. When you have that, it doesn't stop there, right? You're going to want something else. Your level of needs is going to go up, right? So that's where we're going. That's what we're shooting for, is belongingness. And from there, we're trying to get all of our members of our community to reach self-actualization. In other words, know who they are. And how we do that are things like what we're doing tonight. Just talking, conversing, sharing different perspectives, creating a safe space for us to come every week. Age gap. We close in the age gap. We close in the gender gap. Everybody here, as long as your background is Caribbean, you belong in this space, right? So this is an example of how we try to get people to become getting more comfortable with who they are. There are other things I think Oliver mentioned already. Next Sunday is more of a social. It's not as structured as how we're doing it tonight, but same thing, is fostering a space where we can make new friends that are like-minded. Like someone else said, they join because they want they want to connect with like-minded people, right? So that's really the premise behind these orgs, is we recognize there's a deeper need, that we're fulfilling more deeper, intangible, you can't see it, needs, psychological needs, and self-fulfillment needs.
Thank you. And if you guys pay attention to, one of the gray blocks there, the 12 principles, or, communication. A lot of times we don't really communicate. We go to parties and we jump up on wave flags and all this stuff, or we might probably come together and play dominoes and stuff like that. But having a really constructive, dialogue on a consistent basis, that's something that we foster in our spaces. So these 12 principles are our really core guidelines. If you see, I'm not going to go through all of them, but reinvent, redefine, and renovate, right? Accountability and responsibility. And, you know, for our guests tonight, you guys are going to see some of our programs moving forward that really kind of foster and embody those 12 principles. Any questions so far before we move forward?
I just have a comment, Oliver.
Yes.
You're right that we're very comfortable partying together and fetting and jumping up and stuff, right? But now it's like with this whole pandemic, all of that stuff came to a halting screech. Now what? Right? So for those of us in our community who really relied on all of these things to feel a sense of identity and belonging, now what for those people? Right? So that's why it's really important to have a balance. Yes, of course, we all love to party, right? Of course, I love it too, right? But there has to be a balance so that we don't crumble under the pressure. So we adapt and we can, you know, manage during trying times like what we're dealing with right now with this pandemic.
Correct, correct. Very well said. Thank you. So, reclaiming and reinventing the Caribbean Canadian identity. This is a social movement that requires leadership and buy-in and consensus. We are starting from scratch, basically. And I know Vanessa said she haven't heard of us, but we've been around just over 5 years, our Caribbean Canadian community, and we're creating a template for our community. We're here with actually a master plan, and we're here accomplished and united, right? And I want us to understand that reclaiming and reinventing required everyone's participation. This is going to be an ongoing, over time, over generation, the communication, discussion, always going to happen for us to pass this down, because we all know from the beginning of today's event that we talk about, just being a sense of belonging is so important. This is the reason why when people try to find a group, they're going to find like-minded group. Sometimes those like-minded groups are heading in different directions, but guess what? That's where your like-mindedness is, right? So, and we have to be able to adapt to the situation. Look where we are. I remember when we call off, we call a meeting in terms of when the pandemic just started, because we're just about to meet up for our March break event with our kids, you know, entrepreneur kids. And this just happened, and we have to really pivot and adapt. And we have quite a few events online. So that's really, really important. Any question on that? Before I move on? Okay.
Just another comment, Oliver.
Yeah, sure.
Just to add to what you just said, it's really important that we give the next generation, the younger generations, permission to tweak our culture when it's necessary. Tweak little things that no longer working, right? Because what worked for our great grandparents in the Caribbean, right? Whatever cultural habits that worked in that time may not be serving us now in 2021. And I feel like these kids, they feel a pressure that, you know, they either fit in to how it's always been done, right? Or they just give up, they let go of it and go on to maybe American identity instead. Forget it. This one is too hard, right? I have to soak my raisins for 4 months to make black cake, right? Meanwhile, hello, it's 2021. There are ways to do it now where you don't have to soak it 4 months in advance. You know, so giving the younger generation permission to tweak so that they feel motivated to continue the culture. That's the point. We don't want to see the culture die out, right? So that's super important, Oliver, that you mentioned that.
Correct, correct. And we've been tweaking things. We have been tweaking things. So obviously, let's give the next generation a chance to tweak things, because that's how they're gonna embody what we started, and that's how we're embodying what our parents or the past generation started. So thank you, Camille, for that. So let's talk a little bit about social movement. It's a collective behavior, organized, common, basic ideas, solidarity, conflict, duration over time, like we just talked about. And if you kind of look at the bottom there, if you can see it, it talks about social movement may be defined as informal network based on shared beliefs and solidarity, which mobilize about conflictual issues through the frequent use of various forms of protest. And I don't want to make something really clear. When people think protest, they might think, you know, the general protest where you go and hold up a sign and stuff like that. Yes, that's a form of protest, but also just not using certain labels could be a form of protest. We have Caribbean Heritage Month that we're going to talk about briefly. October is Caribbean Heritage Month. It's not officially yet, but we've started that 3.5 years ago or 4 years ago. That's a form of protest. You know, we're not recognized yet, and I believe somebody said when they fill out a census, a ballot or something like that, they put other, because Caribbean Canadian identity is not on the census ballot yet. So when it comes to social movement, there's so many different ways to protest, right? There's so many different areas of protesting, right? Even educating your kids. You may not like the way the educational system, you educate yourself, that's a form of protest. Even where you parent, like I said before, is a form of protest. Anyone else wants to add? Yes, Vanessa.
One of the other things that I wanted, one of the things that I would like to say, as far as even that I look at as a form of protest as well, is where people are identifying as she, they, them. You know, that's a massive protest where you cannot just say, oh yeah, Ingrid. No, you got to say they. And sometimes for us, I don't want to really use the old school, but you know, for us who, you know, that's something that we have to get used to. And that's a massive protest that is happening a lot with a lot of millennials. I cannot tell you how many webinars I do. It's just outrageous. But at the end of the day, when you see and you look through and you see people have their name, like I'm Vanessa, but I recognize myself as she, her, right? And then you have another person who is she, her, them. And I'm just going to call you Ingrid, or I'm going to call you Camille. I just can't do that. I don't have anything wrong with it. I don't see anything wrong with it. I need to understand that social movement, but for me, I'm just going to call you by your name, because now you're kind of getting my English language all screwed up.
And you know what, that's a good point, because you know, once you're used to something for a long time, and you said old school, quote unquote old school, it's very challenging. And this is what we've been talking about in terms of tweaking and adjusting and adapting, right? And I'm glad you take that approach as, okay, I can't go wrong by calling you your name, right? I'm going to refer you as in the third party, I'm going to refer you as your name. So
because
this way,
if you call them the wrong, say for instance, you have someone who you did not know that they identify like that. So, you know, you meet them and what have you, and, oh, you know, my name is, but I identify as she, her. Okay. Now you have to, your brain, you have to utilize the part of your brain that you have not, that has been dormant for so long. And then you got to kind of figure out, how do you bring that into context every single time that you're going to have a dialogue with that person? So that's the part when I'm saying, like, you know, we're a little bit old school and we have to retrain ourselves. Yes, but they want it done like right away.
Yeah, which, you know, and we all know that it takes time, but I'm glad that, so what you have done, it's really moving things in the right direction, where obviously you said that you have no issue with that, but you take the approach where it's safe for both parties. So at least you refer that person by the name. Well said. And I'm going to put that one in there, because that one didn't come up last time. So that's also that's one right now. It's a big form of protest, and a lot, you're right, Vanessa, so a lot of them are doing this. Anyone else wants to add?
Sure, I always have something to say. I really respect what Vanessa just said, especially with the putting the onus on ourselves. I always put the onus on myself to go back to school, whether I'm going back to the old school or going back to the new school, but I'm always practicing because I'm a practitioner. But I also attended a Zoom yesterday, and it was for HR. So human resources, the people that hire and fire you. There is places that you don't want to say they and them. And I learned that, well, I got it to my consciousness yesterday. Because if you say, they always say that, or they're always aggressive, you know them, right? So that's saying that you know everyone in the world, right? But we don't. None of us 13 people know the other 8 billion people in the world. So we can't say they, we can't say them. So the subject was given yesterday at the HR. It was to diffuse and to increase diversity in the workplace. And the subject was, they gave a couple of examples. The guy said in the cafeteria at work, come here, tell me why it's so hard to understand and to say your guys' names. Your names are so hard to pronounce. And you could take that as a right or wrong, or you can take that as absolutely wrong. And it turned out to be absolutely wrong. You might say the guy, you know, he just didn't know how to word that properly, and he wasn't intentionally trying to hurt anyone, but it's still absolutely wrong without intent. And it's because what seems normal for me doesn't mean that my whole geography or my social status is above that of the next person, because they know how to pronounce their own name, speak their own language, and quite comfortable in their own social setting. So and it's a reason to be fired these days too. So that's what I learned yesterday, and I just thought I would share that with you guys. As far as being from the Caribbean, even from one country to another within those 43 odd countries, we see differences, and we see reason to, like Oliver said, retweet and reconnect and bring the old school with us, like Camille said. But imagine that when you're bringing Canada involved. And I'm the one who keeps mentioning Canada as part of the Caribbean Canadian Association, because Canada is part of it, right? They gave us even the platform to meet, because we're not meeting in Russia, we're meeting in Toronto. So there's a lot of culture here, regardless if you want to call it a very bland culture. It's not bland. It's us, it's the Italians, it's the French, it's the Spanish, and then you were going back into the Caribbean countries, right? So they're all over there too, right? French, Italian, Spanish, and then we're all multi and melting in Toronto. So when we have an identity Caribbean, we put that in there as a Caribbean. So then you'd have French, Italian, Portuguese, Caribbean, and then we meet here. So I just thought I would share it that way.
Oh, that's well said. Thank you, and I love that that little scenario, or that you know, situation there, because we face this all the time, and that's something that we're going to touch on a little bit deeper later on, and how we deal with those kind of situations. So the powerful movement lies in the fact that it can indeed change the habits of people. This change is not the result of force, but dedication and moral persuasion. So I just want to, you know, show that with you guys. So kind of add to what we're talking about. How are we advancing our effort and our movement forward? We're fostering a collective sense of positive self-esteem, community, and belonging. And Camille touched on that. I just want to share that. Camille touched on that earlier. So when it comes to our vision a thriving Caribbean Canadian community? I mean, we're here accomplished and united, right? So when it comes to that, I want us to really take a really look on that in terms of what does that really mean to you? What does thriving Caribbean Canadian community looks like to you? Anyone wants to share? Or is it, or you may think otherwise? Anyone wants to share? Because we will know if we're in the right direction based on when this vision becomes a reality. That's when we will know. How do we know we're heading in the right direction? All right. So what does thriving Caribbean Canadian means to you?
Well, for me, I find that when I see a community that is thriving, that means that there's the community is coming together. They're celebrating together. They're socializing together. There's a sense of togetherness about a thriving community. The businesses are thriving within that community. Everyone, you know, I shouldn't say everyone, the majority are getting along. They get along with outside other communities. So for me, a thriving community is one that is working, that has implemented just whatever it is that they've implemented within that community that works, and it's thriving, right? It's growing. It makes you want to move from where you are and go into that community. There's a positivity that is in those communities as well, right? So that's my little take on what what I see as a thriving community.
Well said. I appreciate it. That's what I was alluding to when we say our vision, our mantra. If this becomes a reality, like you said, that's when we know that we're thriving. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Anyone else who would like to share?
Just want to add to that, as well as we are consistently growing and supporting each other through every venture that we're doing, especially when it comes to networking in our community, that not only are we building up for ourselves now, but we're making sure we're putting up for our future generations. And I feel like that's really important as part of a thriving community, because you want things to continue as the generations continue to grow and come forth. So yeah, definitely part of our community.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Rexilla?
Yeah, in a thriving Caribbean community, you see success, you see unity, you see strength, you see development, and there's room for improvement and promotion. That is how I see it.
Got it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ingrid, raise hand.
I think what I would say is that just to add to what everyone else has said, but everyone has to be there with the same vision, the same goal. And so that starts with them having the same Canadian identity, the Caribbean Canadian identity. And then you need to have that cohesion, because without that cohesion, it's pretty difficult to thrive. You need that so that you can grow.
Got it. Got it.
Oliver, just before you move on, in the chat, Ingrid O is saying people or a group that work together to achieve a like goal. So I just wanted to let you know.
Yes, and both Ingrid are saying the same thing at the same time. Love it. So we are here, accomplished and united. Okay, so at this point, we're going to take a quick 3 minute. I'm looking at the time. 3 minutes. So we're back here at
Oliver. It says 5 minutes on the screen.
Oh well, I'm changing that.
Oh, okay.
I know it says 5 minutes on the screen. I get it. I'm changing that a little bit. We're a little bit, because we have a lot to cover later on. So hopefully I can, You know, if we can take a break, another break, we can. But do we need 5 minutes break though? Like, I'm gonna ask Vanessa. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you need 5 minute break?
No, listen, I'm just going to give you a brief example. I had a meeting with our Congress, our executive board, and we had changed it to 8 o'clock. She sent the meeting request. It said 7 p.m. I ran out, ran back home, and sat waiting 7:06. Nobody was online. I'm going like, what the heck? It said, I checked it again. It said 7. And then I sent we have a group chat. I sent a message. Why am I the only one that's online? Isn't this meeting happening? It's 8 o'clock, Vanessa. I'm going, the meeting request says 7, okay? So just that you kind of, that miss what I just wanted to bring it to you.
Yes, no, thank you. Because we're Caribbean 2.0. We're trying to finish on time, and I'm trying to gauge the amount of things we have to cover and the time. So I say, you know what, let's do a quick 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes, if that's okay with everyone.
Well, Oliver, what I suggest is tell us what time to come back.
Thank you.
8 or what? 8 or what to come back?
So 8:00, let's go to 8:02.
8:02.
Because everybody's time is a little bit different. So I'm giving you until 8:02 to come back. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So while watching the video, and so I want you guys to really think about that. So I'm gonna play this video and give me a thumbs up.
Share your screen.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you. Thank you. So give me a thumbs up, Camille, if you can hear. Let me just turn this up now.
Emotional intelligence refers to the ability to recognize, interpret, and process emotions in yourself and others. While genetics, upbringing, and environment all play a role, there are steps you can take to develop your emotional intelligence over time. Get to know yourself. Emotionally intelligent people are self-aware. They have a realistic appreciation of their strengths and weaknesses and how they come across to others. Peer feedback is one way of improving your self-awareness and may uncover a few of your emotional blind spots. Learn your triggers. Linked to the notion of self-awareness is knowing how you are likely to respond in particular situations. Think about how you felt the last time you were under pressure. Did these feelings help or hinder you? Recognizing emotions and the source of these emotions can shift your emotional state. Empathize. Seeing things from someone else's perspective will help you understand their values and beliefs. This is important when it comes to motivating and engaging others. Make a conscious effort to get to know your colleagues. Ask open questions and actively listen to what they have to say, rather than simply waiting for your turn to speak. Be on the lookout for body language and other non-verbal signs, as these may tell you more than someone is willing to express out loud. Own your emotions. Part of being emotionally intelligent is about taking responsibility for the way you interact with others. If someone upsets you, pause and reflect on why their actions led you to feel this way, instead of reacting impulsively. Recognize that a conversation is a two-way interaction, and it takes two people to make you angry, sad, or frustrated. Go with your gut. Finally, listen to your body. If your stomach starts doing backflips every time you speak to a senior manager, or your muscles tense up before you go into a meeting, what does this tell you? Counterintuitive as it might seem, emotions can be a valuable source of information when making rational decisions at work. Remember, emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about learning how to recognize, process, and channel them in a way that benefits you and your team. Enhancing your emotional intelligence requires effort, but it can be achieved with sustained practice.
Cool. So at this time, I really want us to, before we get into our discussion, I want us to think, like I said before, how emotional intelligence affect us as a culture, as a whole, as a people, and as a movement. So before I get into that, what I want to share with you guys in terms of emotional intelligence, and I know some of us might saw me present this before, but I'm coming from a little bit of a different perspective this time in terms of just as a whole. We all experience, and I know David shared earlier, we all experience different sort of, you can call it labeling, discrimination, misinformation, miscommunication. You know the feeling where other people may think different of us and communicate differently with us based on their own personal bias or belief, or even sometimes cultures against cultures within the same cultures. So why does this happen, and how does it affect us as people moving forward when you have goals and you want to head to a certain direction? And I want to introduce to us here a transactional analysis by Eric Byrne, and he talks about why we think and feel and act the way we do, and how to identify what's happening when it comes to changing the outcome in a situation, whether we like it or not, or whatever we understand it or not, we can change the outcome in that situation as a person, as a culture, as a whole, as a movement. And for those who are not familiar with the transaction, it just means conversation, if you hear me saying transaction all the time. So there's three types of transaction. You have complementary, cross transaction, and ulterior transaction. I'm not going to really focus on ulterior transaction. We're just going to focus on complementary and cross transaction. And when it comes to all three transactions, there are three parts to each transaction: what you say, the response you expect, and also the other part is the response you actually received. And so we can ask ourselves why we have misunderstanding between people, culture, right? We can ask ourselves that. So a complement transaction is very simple, straightforward. You're having a conversation with somebody, and what you say and what you expect is exactly what you expect, right? Same thing when it comes to in a group, in a like-minded group, similar to our group we have today, right? In a group like this, we're all on the same page. What we're talking about is what we expect, and it's almost like a good flowing roundtable kind of conversation. A cross transaction now is when you're opposite from complementary, when you say something or you're talking about something and you get a different response that you expected. Then this is the reason why there's conflict, because you're like, whoa, okay, there's misunderstanding, there's miscommunication. Same thing in a group setting, right? So this is the reason why I want us to think of, even cultures within, even people within the same culture, even with your own family, right? Siblings and all these things. This could be miscommunication. And how do we deal with all this? And I want to share with you something that we all have, right? Now it becomes personal now when it comes to the ego states. We all have three ego states: the parent ego state, the adult ego state, and the child ego state. When I said child particularly, it doesn't mean age. It just means the state of where you are at the same time. So keep in mind that we can move in between all these three ego states as people. And for some of us who are probably hearing this for the first time, you guys probably can get the idea how you can move through these phases or these states, in a one single conversation. You can move through these stages. So I want to kind of deep a little bit deeper into each one. So parent ego state is about, there's two sides of parent, the critical parent and the nurturing parent, right? And it's rooted from the past. The adult ego state is rooted in the present, no emotions. The way to process information is a little bit different. And the child ego state is also rooted in the past, where you have three stages of the child. You have the free child, the adaptive child, which is really, that's the dangerous part there. And you have the rebellious child. So let's go a little bit deeper. So there's two sides in terms of, what I said, the parenting, the critical parent, the lecturing, the judging, the ordering, the directing, top down to, use terminologies like, oh, that's so ridiculous, and you should know better than that, and stuff like that, right? That's our, side when it comes to the critical side. The nurturing side now is when you're taking care of somebody, when you're helping somebody, you're loving, right? I love you. My wife always says, sweetheart, baby, I know she's up to something, right? So there's different side of us. And those are the two sides when it comes to the parent. Adult now is a little bit different. Like I said before, it's rooted in the present. They're very objective and rational. They process information a little bit different. They treat people as equal, nothing bias happening. And the child ego state is in three parts. It's also rooted in the past. And the child is a curious child, a creative child, and the open, loving child. And they're the adaptive now, which I said is a little bit dangerous, where how we perceive things: guilty, afraid, fear, depressed, anxious, envious, prideful, all of these things. You get the point. And you have the rebellious child, right? You guys seen it, taunting, even adults through temper tantrum too. So let's talk. So as a culture, as people, as a movement, how important do you think emotional intelligence is? Who wants to go? Open up your mic. I'm not gonna pick on you, because this is, I just want to hear what you guys have to say when it comes to as people. How is important it is?
I think it's very important. I mean, it's a part of, the more you learn about this type of stuff, it helps you to grow as a person, and it helps you to build better relationships, whether it's personal with, your loved ones, your significant other, your kids, and also, people outside of the immediate family, your people that you socialize with on a daily basis, just, going out, or it could be, your business relationships as well. So it's very important. There's little techniques that you can learn that will help you to navigate, through those types of relationships a lot better in life, right? So that's my take.
Cool, thank you. Right, exactly. Anyone else? How important it is as people, as a culture, emotional intelligence?
I just want to say, I think the word is crucial, not important. It's crucial. Like it would fix, it wouldn't fix, it would prevent so much. It's very crucial.
Thank you. Thank you for, for that, because I totally agree. I'll be using crucial from now on. Thank you. I appreciate that, because it is actually, when it comes to miscommunication and judging and things like that. I was listening to a gentleman on Facebook. He's a speaker, and for some reason I just kind of log on, and he said he wants to challenge people. He's just kind of open up his live, and he wants to challenge people You know, why don't you just go across the street and say hi to your neighbor? You know, sometimes you saying that we're driving on our street and we look at somebody and they look a certain way, we might judge them and say, you know what, that person look like, they look racist, or that person look like this, that look, you know, we have this, you know, this mindset all the time, and he challenged people and he was so adamant about it. Just go there and just say hi and say, how are you? And he said, you might be shocked the way the person respond. And it's because of, you know, obviously it's sometimes, you know, our environment, but it is so crucial. So thank you, Ken. It's so crucial for us to have that. Anyone else wants to share why is it so crucial?
I'll say something, Oliver. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely agree. It's crucial. What it in this day and age, there's a lot of things that are in fashion. It's in fashion, especially now, to be politically correct. There's a lot of ribbons being broken as far as racial communities being treated properly. It's more recognized than at any other time in history, I think, and not just in Canada or United States, but throughout the whole world. But all those things, and another thing that's in fashion is talking about mental health. And we mentioned old school earlier. I like to think I'm from the old school, and back then in the 60s and 70s, you didn't hear that much about mental health, much less in the Caribbean or in the Caribbean community. But mental health now is talked about freely and kind of understood that it's something that can be prepared for the next person and for the inner person. So when I hear crucial, I absolutely agree with it as far as emotional intelligence. But what is it crucial for? Yes, it's crucial for external support, immediate family, even in the work environment, but we can't forget our inner self. And so if I'm not getting along with people, or if I'm representing a whole group of people wrongly, I think that can be corrected. Either they'll tell me or I'll find out I'm not wanted here. But if I'm hurting my own self, or if I don't like my own self, for whatever the reason is, I think that's when you get these labels and these diagnoses under mental health. That's when it becomes really crucial, because who's going to correct you? You're alone in your room, right? Especially during this kind of the last 2.5 years now, we've been in a state of real isolation. So we really check ourselves now. So am I a Caribbean Canadian person? Yes. Am I alone? Yes. Do I like what I see when I look in the mirror? And will I take that out and represent? Well, it's up to the person. And who's going to tell me to fix myself, right? People can tell you to fix yourself, but if you think yourself is not good, will you tell yourself to fix yourself? So that's when it becomes crucial, because you're talking about something as deep as emotion, something as deep as intelligence, your mind. And that's probably why they never really taught this stuff that you're putting forth, Oliver. They never really pushed that in grade 8, 9, and 10, right? I think that most adolescent people are just becoming adults or young adults, and they are able to talk. Some kids learn it at 5, 7 years old to talk to their parents as an adult and just communicate what they want and what they don't want. And they're able to be on an equal basis, right? But in school and in this system, I find there's a big difficulty to actually go home and tighten up everything that needs tightening and loosen everything that needs loosening when you're dealing with self. And for minorities, as a lot of people like to call other people, because there's less of them and more of us. So the minorities have been sent home and they've undergone trauma, and they've undergone a lot of things that are, I think the stigma and the trauma of being that person affects them, how they go about the next day. And yeah, that is crucial.
Thank you. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the belonging part, because it's tough when, for example, the situation you just described, you're by yourself and all that stuff, and belongingness now is so important. That's why, when you're talking, I'm like, yes, that's why we have these calls. That's why we have these calls every Sunday. It's part of that situation. Ingrid, I saw your hand raised. You wanted to chime in?
I was going to say that one of the things to me about emotional intelligence, it's about being self-aware, so that you know maybe what are some of your biases, and you kind of have to understand and learn, the environment and when to rein it in, when it's a good time. So I think for me, that's why it's pretty crucial, as Candy says, right? Or critical, because yeah, if you don't know that, you can be going on and going through life, whether it's as a culture, as a person, as a movement, kind of doing things that you're not going to get other people's, involvement or to work with you, and also for your own self-development. It can never hurt.
Correct. Got it. Candy?
I was going to say, David made a comment about how the kids were not being taught emotional intelligence. And it's just ironic to me, because when you think about how we actually educate little humans to become adult humans, it's all the functions of being an adult, the mechanics of it. There's no emotionals, there's no psychological learning, there's nothing like that. So it's just interesting to see that. And it's like I've started to understand about emotional intelligence, that if you don't understand what your triggers are and what your, I guess, what pushes you, you are going to repeat the same problems are going to keep coming up in your life until you understand those triggers, until you understand how to address them intelligently. And that's all.
100%. Well said. Anything in the chat, Amanda?
Ingrid O wanted to also add to be more aware of how other people feel as well. But other than that, Candy also mentioned that May is Mental Health Month as well. But other than that, yeah.
Thank you, Candy. And we might think personal. I want you to think, outside of the box in terms of, within our culture, within our homes, sibling, your parents, your kids, right? Or we respond to each other. And sometimes our parents may not mean well, our friends, or even Caribbean countries, with other Caribbean countries, right? Because there's a stigma out there when it comes to, a group of Caribbeans come together and all these things. And, so I just kind of open up from that perspective when it comes to just the broader, scheme of things when it comes to dealing with, a group of people, and not only personal, but I really want us to understand that, because that's the bottom line here when it comes to dealing with issues and moving this drive, this mission forward, right? Vanessa, go ahead.
So my little take on this is sometimes what I find within the different cultures is that the listening aspect is like no one wants to listen to the other person. If they want to get their point across, their point is more important than what the other person has to say. Culturally speaking, I want to say some Caribbean islands have different ways in how they communicate. And I've led a few panel discussions, and sometimes it's when we're leading the panel discussion that you can actually get to the root of the question that is being asked at that particular time. So, and that is in a controlled environment. So for me, what I always say is, hey, we were not all born with a manual that told us, hey, this is how I react under stress. This is what happens when this and all of these things. There's no manual with no chapters, module 1 of, 1.2 section 69. It just doesn't exist. So how I feel that we better understand each other is by, number 1, being observant, number 2, being respectful, and number 3, just listen. People will tell you so much about themselves when you actually listen, right? So, and going from one Caribbean island to another Caribbean island to another Caribbean island, I can see all of those biases. I can see all of, who has the stiff upper lip and who doesn't, and who looks down on who because of, hey, I'm more of, I've got more of a British influence here. I've got more of a Dutch influence here. I've got more of a Spanish and Portuguese. So you look down on the people who you feel are less than, right? So that's just my take on it. And I just feel people need to be respectful. They need to be observant and listen. And it doesn't matter if you're speaking with a child or if you're speaking with an adult, all 3 of those things will come into play at any given time, at any given moment, no matter where you are.
Thank you for that. And I love the fact that you said, listen, and we have to be practical about it, because yes, we can have a conversation. We can say, well, it's important to listen, but we all know, if you don't know, that if somebody is not listening to you, you make sure you find that time to listen to them. And usually human emotions, that's how it works in terms of, they're going to know after a while. It may take a longer time, but you patients listen, and they know within themselves, it's automatic that, you know what, they're going to catch themselves and say, okay, right, I need to start listening now. So we can change that narrative. We can change that outcome and allow them to look within themselves, right? And I know David touched on it earlier. How does one correct themselves if they don't really know, right? Just by you doing the opposite from what they think that you're about to do, because you're listening to them, actively actually listening to them. I got Stella. Stella, did you want to share?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
My name is Stella Pascal. I live in the city of Burlington, Ontario, Canada. We are here doing, in the recent months, we're going to be doing Emancipation Day for all of first ancestors that came to this country to pave a way for people all over the Caribbean and all over the world. I would like to say I've missed most of this podcast tonight, but I'm glad I got in at the end here. What do you see us going from here as a community where we can eventually be a part of the bigger picture? Where do you see us in the future as Caribbean people? I'm coming from my parentage is from the island of Grenada, and I was born in the UK. I've lived here all my life. And I want to know, where do you see us going from here?
So thank you for joining us. I just realized that you joined. So we're thriving. So we're heading in the right direction. We're thriving Caribbean Canadians. And I'm not sure if you missed the presentation, you probably did. We're just talking about emotional intelligence and how we have as a movement, Caribbean Canadians, how we move forward. So your question is very fitting in terms of where do we see yourself moving forward? It starts with a conversation like this. It starts with this forum. We have to really set a really solid foundation, and because we are tweaking the way our ancestors did things, or the way the previous Caribbean, how the regular culture or the society look on Caribbeans. So we're tweaking that in terms of we having, progressive dialogue. And when it comes to forum like this is where we start. So, you know, you can contribute by, you know, your idea, your perspective in terms of how we move forward. But I would say we're starting here as a collective with, you know, because there's so many different things on our agenda. You know, as part of our organization, we're pretty much we've been making a lot of noise in the last 5 years. So thank you for joining us. Did you want to really comment more on the emotional intelligence piece, or you just wanted to ask a question just to find out a little bit more? Stella, are you there?
We lost her.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyone else wanted to add?
No, Oliver, maybe we can circle back to that conversation and topic after you've completed this
Yeah, for
section,
sure.
or maybe in the after hours. But I think there are some things that we are doing, and just, you know, as as we grow, you know, the generations before us that had come to Canada, I won't speak too long on this, but the generations before that had come to Canada, went to England, went to all of the what they were calling quote unquote first world countries to better their lives. You know, it was a little bit of a struggle for most, I won't say all. And, you know, now their kids and the next generations are growing up in this environment, and that's part of what we are, right? And so I think we could talk a little bit more to that at another time. But you know, this is the evolution. This is the hierarchy that Camille and yourself, Oliver, you were talking about, where we're growing, right? And that's where we're starting to build these groups and build programs to help you know, us to move to that next level.
Sure. And actually, I mean, I don't mind really jam out here for a little bit, talk about this, because this is so important. This topic is so important. Well, sorry, this is so crucial. Sorry, Candy. This is so crucial for us to move forward. So I wouldn't mind, you know, open the mic and let others speak about this, because whatever, you know, I'm just thinking of all the other slides moving forward. We can really skip some of those slides because this one is so important. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, no problem. I was just thinking about my parents when they came to Canada, right? You know, my mom worked in a factory. She worked multiple jobs. My dad was a welder, or he still is, he's still working. And, you know, they struggled, and I was watching them struggle to make, you know, ends meet for us, right? And for themselves and for the family. But, you know, as I grew up and went to school, and my brothers and sisters did the same, you know, we had a better life. Like, Camille and I talk about this all the time. Like, what would it have been like to just move here to a country with a few dollars in your pocket and not understanding how you're going to make ends meet moving forward? And maybe some of us on the call already went through this as well, right? But man, for me, I couldn't even imagine just saying, hey, I'm going to pick up and just go somewhere else, not knowing that I'm going to have a job there, not knowing how, you know, how things are going to end. You know, and so for them, the stress, this emotional intelligence for my parents was tough, right? I mean, them, you know, just trying to get along between each other, then, you know, working through financial issues and kind of trying to make that work. Plus you're raising kids who, that's probably a new experience, right? Going through in a new country, not knowing the educational system. So, you know, the focus, it was hard to focus on one thing when they're trying to do 10. But I'm sure others have a similar experience. But now, you know, I mean, I would say it paid off, and I hope they agree, right? But they made things a lot easier for me, right? And my brothers and sisters.
And you're so right. And that's the key, right? They paved the way with all that they knew. So obviously certain things that, you know, they could only focus on certain things because of the situation and the environment and all these things. So they did what they did. So now moving forward, this is the reason why we have, you know, all this information at our fingertips now, so we can really, so we're now are tweaking that. So right now, we're not only growing kids and just focus on the jobs and all that stuff. We're on this call today, and we're involved in so many different things. And I know we just finished, did a whole book club kind of idea in terms of educating ourselves and personal development. So, you know, our parents didn't really, even if that was around, that was really, really small things to focus on. Their focus was a bigger issue, right? And so that's so important. So now we're tweaking that into here and allowing our next generation now to set up shop now, to set things and pave the way so they can tweak, so they feel comfortable, like Camille said, tweaking all these things so we can really thrive, right? So that was really well said there, Mark. Thank you. Anyone else wanted to add?
I'd like to add, Oliver, just from what Mark, the example he just gave there, just to add to that, some of them even left some of their kids back home, right, to come here. And then, of course, that's like another beast in itself when that child grows up and they're dealing with issues of abandonment. Like there's a whole next thing they have to deal with that they were not taught how to deal with. So Mark is right in the sense that when they came here, they were really just about physiological and safety needs. When we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they didn't have the luxury of looking for belongingness and self-actualization, right? And somewhere along the way it happened where we, like now the next generation, we're at the point now where we do have safety and physiological needs. Like but yet we're still in survival mode. Like the light didn't turn on, not for everybody, right? But a lot of us, generally speaking. Otherwise it would, if the light went on, it would show up. We'd be thriving, right? So clearly the light is still off. And what David was saying was that, you know, now it's in fashion. Personal development is in fashion. Emotional intelligence is in fashion. We now have the luxury to improve ourselves. We owe it, actually, to our parents and our grandparents. We owe it to do that. That's why they came here, because everybody came here for the same reason, right? They wanted a better life. They did what they could at the time based on the resources that they had available to them at the time. But now in 2021, there's so much more we have available. We're not using it to our advantage. So to answer your question, Oliver, yes, it's crucial. And it's actually a game changer. You know, if we want to get to that point where we're thriving as a community, right? Rixella mentioned success. You know, Vanessa mentioned we're working together, we support each other, all these different things. The number one thing is to deal with the individual. All those other things are an extension of how we feel about ourselves individually. So we have to equip our individual community members with this new skill, emotional intelligence. Because we're not learning this in school. I definitely didn't learn this in school. And I know the kids now are not learning it in school. So then where does it come from? Do we just fail our kids or ignore it? That is, now that we all, the 15 of us, know about emotional intelligence, it's our responsibility to share it in our own circles. You don't keep knowledge for yourself. What does Mark say again? Knowledge is only knowledge when it's shared? Or was it David? Mark or David?
That was me, I think.
That's correct.
Knowledge is only powerful when it's shared, or something to that effect. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. Yes, we want to get to that ultimate state where we're thriving, but that requires looking deep, digging deep, and recognizing the gaps and the voids, and seeking out responses to those voids. Not just complaining about it or talking about it around the kitchen table, like actually working towards filling in those gaps and voids. And emotional intelligence, that I'm telling you is a game changer, because a lot of us are walking around with a lot of resentment with our upbringing, our childhood, our siblings, our ex-spouse, right? Ungrateful children, our boss who didn't give us the promotion, right? And those things, they build up, like plaque. If you don't know how to deal with it. You know, so emotional intelligence helps to deal with negative situations, right? Or traumatic situations. Some of us still harping on what happened 400 years ago. They haven't been able to free up their minds from what happened 400 years ago, 400 plus years ago. And that passes down in the womb. Even if you never speak to the children about what happened 400 years ago, that energy passes down in the womb to the next generation. And they're born with their light already dimmed, right? They're born with, glasses on, a narrow perspective, thinking that this is how they have to move around the world. They don't get to that point where they realize their full potential, right? So I'm telling you, it's a game changer if we were to understand the science behind emotions.
Correct. That's where everything's at. I was just on a call this morning, a 2-hour call, and they're saying exactly that, Camille, in terms of that part there where you said where, things was just passed down to us from, centuries, right? And it just brings up more anxiety more than anything else. I see Danielle hand goes up, and then I'm going to come back to Stella. So Danielle, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add to that, you're absolutely right, Camille, with the passing down of things into, the next generation. And being a part of this Caribbean Canadian community with CWS CCPU, I'm learning more as a Caribbean Canadian on what it means to give positive and that next level step to my daughter for future generations, that they'll be able to do more than what I was able to do, as I'm in a privileged position to do more than what my parents came to do. I was just having this conversation the other day, and I said, our parents came here from the Caribbean looking for a better life for our families. And so for them, it was enough to come, establish yourself, buy a home, make sure the kids get the education, and then, so that they can buy a home, educate their kids, and keep it going. But there's also that next step of how do we help our children deal with trauma? Because our parents didn't deal with trauma really, right? They just kind of figured out ways to get around it so that they could continue to survive. Our next level is figure out how to deal with it so that we not only can continue to survive, but to also thrive and build. And so I always look, for me personally, I always say what my parents, like where the buck stopped for them, now it's my turn to take the baton and keep it going. So that's why these things are so important, especially for us as Caribbean Canadians, because there's so much that's missed in terms of how to develop the full person as opposed to just surviving. And groups like this, chats like this, these types of emotional intelligence is so crucial for us to continue, putting that into ourselves so we can put it into the next generation.
Well said. Thank you. Appreciate that. Stella?
Yes, again, because my system keeps going in and out, I had to charge my tablet. I have a concern of that we're always making excuses for what is going on with our community when other communities are thriving and going above or beyond. They're coming here as immigrants just like we are, and they're doing and stepping up more than we are to the platform, to the economic structure in which we live. When are we going to stop making excuses for our behavior, living here for hundreds of years, from Nova Scotia to all the way, all over Canada? We have people of color, people Caribbean heritage. When do you think we'll stop making excuses for lack of participation in this economy?
For me, I think that, people are going to have to start to understand who they are, where they come from. Besides the Jewish community, I really cannot think of another culture that has been, I want to use the word damaged, but it may not be the right word, over a long period of time. And as Camille had said, that kind of treatment that went on within your culture, it gets carried down. And as Camille had said, it continues through the womb. When the child is then born, certain things are just not talked about. I think I was 40 years old and I found out that I have I think she's my great-great-grandmother or my great-great-grandaunt, one of the two. And she is actually a white woman from the Ukraine. I can claim Judaism as a faith, like never knew that. I was 40 years old. Why? Because our parents and their parents, they do not discuss these things. And then when my daughter, I make sure that my daughter knows. I started doing the ancestry, what have you. My travel stuff, my travel business that I've put together, I'm more leaning towards, I have a whole segment that's carved out for Black History tours, because we cannot speak to something that we do not understand. And so I feel that we need to be educated into, even if it's ancestral, who we are as a people. Who we are, stand in your purpose, we are always feeling like we're under the whip of somebody else. We take a lot more than the average Joe. And then why is it, then we feel we're from the defragmentation. It's not just coming from our parents, that is coming from way back. That is way back, and then they don't know what they don't know. So how can they pass on things that they don't know, right? So we are all now coming as a collective and trying to unravel and undo some of these things that have been put in place that have literally worked against us for so many years. So we are now trying to come and take care of these things, become emotionally intelligent, become financially intelligent again, in order for our community to grow and thrive. But we have to come together. We have to stop killing each other. We have to stop fighting. We have to stop, there comes a point where we've just got to stop all this stuff, right? So, we're trying to get in a good place. Organizations like this, like the one that I'm with currently, and there's a few others that I know that, we are trying. We can't do these things in one big giant leap when it didn't take one big giant leap to do it. We have to continue to do these things in baby steps, or in adult steps. Then I don't know, but it's a process, and I find that we are trying. Those of us that are heavily involved in the community, we are trying, and we just have to kind of figure out what more that we need to do in order to get to where we want to get to. I hope I worded that correctly, because that's how it was kind of in my head.
Oh yeah, well, that's exactly how you worded it. Well said. And it's baby step, turtle steps, whatever you want to say, as long as you're taking steps. Could be turtle, baby, we're taking steps. And you're so right. And we mentioned this in the beginning, where it's going to take generations, because just like you said, things didn't happen overnight, right? So it's going to take generations. So this is where it starts. Discussion and conversation like this is where we start.
Yes. Oliver?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just been trying to get my hand up for the longest time.
Oh, cool.
It's up now, and I guess I got to take it down.
Okay.
Now.
I thought I
But
missed
anyway,
it.
yeah, I was just gonna try and also word since Mark checked in there, Mark had me all teary-eyed, and I finally get to talk about it, because I'm hearing a lot of input about Caribbean. But we're on the subject of emotional intelligence. And yes, a few generations have traveled to better themselves. And yes, I think we all, at the age we are now, would like to be better, regardless of where you are from geographically, yes. But I think success is also a relative thing. So first of all, I'd like to commend all the Caribbean people that traveled over the last 400 years. that traveled, somewhere in Europe, somewhere in North America, and bettered themselves, because I think their challenge was great. And not just great because of the visible problems they encountered, but because of their success. And again, success is measured so relatively, like you made $1 million, I made $1,000. Who is successful? One person started with $500,000, one person started with zero. So who made 1,000% profit, right? So it's very relative if you look at it that way. The Portuguese traveled here. Many Europeans came over with a penny in their pocket and a suitcase of clothes, and they have like a chain store collection. Yeah, you're going to measure them. That's fine and dandy. But we're talking about emotional education. And I have to commend all the Caribbean people that I ever met in my life for how good they did. And I don't want anyone to ever forget that or think I'm talking for myself or for age or
that's well
anything else, but it's so commendable and such a success, such an important, a crucial education that's not taught in school. How to present yourself, how to show respect to someone on the sidewalk. And if we don't retweet that, never mind the scandals from one island to a smaller island, I'm talking about the success. Because wherever there's success, there's scandal. Wherever there's peace, there's been war. Because one leaves and the other one shows up.
correct. Well said.
But the point is emotional education. And how do you get it? I've seen nothing but emotional education to cut through everything from civil rights to what's in fashion, what's out of fashion, to having a high IQ. Never mind your EQ. How can I get a high IQ? Maybe I have to travel to get it. And they did.
Yeah.
And they got it. So hats off to them. Much less they had a high EQ. And we have to I think I don't say, I'm not going to tell anyone what they have to do, but I know I recognize their high EQ. High. And history will record it.
Very well said.
Very relative.
Look at,
Thank you.
Look